If you're new here, hi, we're Decadence Homeschool, and on this channel, we talk about our homeschool experience. My daughter is dyslexic, but also highly advanced in a few different areas like math and history and science. And we get into all the stuff about raising a 2E child. And then we're also starting this year going to be talking about my son who is entering preschool. He's 3 years old. So in this video, we're going to be talking about my daughter's math journey. We do periodic updates. Just that we have a nice log of what she's been doing at different times and how things are going. And hopefully that's of benefit to you. So if you want that kind of content, join us. Feel free to like and subscribe, and you can follow along with us on this journey. So this past, it's probably been about a year, but we homeschool year round. So a year is kind of a weird thing for us. Since last summer, she has been working on Beast Academy Math 4, and she's finished it, I think, well, actually, I know exactly when she finished it because she had a goal of finishing it before my son was born. I have 2 sons. My newest son was born. So she did. She finished it a little bit before. So she finished it in January. And now we're working on Beast Academy Math 5. To be precise, we are in 5A. So Beast Academy is an advanced math program. If you go on the forums and stuff, the moms are like pretty specific on it. They're like, hey, don't use this if your kid's not advanced at math, if your kid's not a gifted math kid. This would like just destroy your kid if they're remedial in math, or even if you're using a lower level, if your kid's not incredibly strong and interested and gifted in math, this is not the program for you. However, it is super fun and engaging. It has these wild, beautiful comic books, which I'll show you on the next page. And it has these engaging stories about these math monsters at this little math school on an island that are going on all these, well, they're just going through their classes, but because they're monsters, it seems more fun. And they're teaching you math through their experiences, and that's awesome. And then you get into the actual workbooks, and it's just a workbook, but it has a little monster on different pages, so that's fun. But it's incredibly advanced math. You look at and on their website, they have just a phenomenal amount of information to show you, like what the kid's actually going to be learning. Their scope and sequence is very in depth. So any one book might cover, I don't know, Common Core standards, right? Okay. So it might cover standards that would be used in 4th grade, but then it might go all the way up to like 9th grade. Or it might cover things starting in, 5th grade, but then it goes all the way up through high school on just the different things that it covers. So they start off with say in 4th grade, they're going to start off with the really basic stuff that you're going to need to know in 4th grade for that topic. And then they go nuts and start getting you further and further and further and further. And because it's that mastery approach and you've been working with the same type of information for, a few weeks now, they can get you to go further and further and further and further in it. Like we just did they always start with geometry, which is great because I love geometry. I'm very visual. So we just finished their geometry section a while ago, and they go from, really basic, like we're going to calculate the area and surface area and volume and of these basic shapes. And then they go to these like really crazy shapes and what happens if you remove all the corners? What happens if you, if we only give you this tiny bit of information, can you extrapolate from that this? It starts getting into these kind of crazy word problems that use more logic than anything else. And then you have to do the math, and the math's not easy. It's very large numbers. And if you've been following our channel very much, you know that we have our daughter do the vast majority of it in her head. So it's rare that we even let her write things down. We are trying to get her to have really good mental computation skills. So she's doing a lot of this in her head, hold the giant number in your head, and then do the next thing, and then come back and plug it in. And do you remember what the giant number was? Oh, it was this. And then you do, here's the next 5 steps. And she's great because, our joke with her is that the hardest thing for her is +1. And it's a joke because she won't do the really simple thing fast. But if you ask her this like crazy long thing, she'll tell you 8. Like, what? I was like, the answer's 8. Like, how'd you get there? Like, I don't know. It's just, it's 8. And then you do the whole thing and it's like, oh, it was 8. Like, good job, kid. So if your kid is like that, this is a great program for you. Let's get into it. Okay, so now we're doing Beast Academy 5A. Beast Academy breaks up their year into 4 quarters. So we're in the first quarter of 5th grade math, although it's not really 5th grade math. It's when you're done with Beast Academy 5, you should be going into either pre-algebra or algebra 1, depending on your student. And they should take a placement test when they're done, because you don't know how much they learned through the program or how long they, all that stuff. Everyone's a little bit different. So either you're going into pre-algebra or you're going into algebra, which is crazy because my daughter's 9. So that'll be fun. So the first chapter goes over geometry. So it starts off with some basic stuff, 3-dimensional solids, their surface area, their volume, that sort of thing. Then it goes into prisms and pyramids, and you're calculating surface area and volume for those. It also has this great thing where you're doing their nets of like all these crazy different 3-dimensional shapes. They're fantastic. So very visual thinking. Then you go into chapter 2, which is integers. So in this chapter, you're focusing on multiplying, dividing positive and negative numbers, which isn't that hard. Like, the actual math at the beginning of this chapter is pretty darn easy, but having a kid learn to think positive and negative and how to move back and forth on the number line. Okay, I'm starting here and I'm going towards 0 or away from 0, and in what direction. That's a complicated thing for kids just to grasp. If you think about in human history, when we even developed the concept of 0 and the concept of negative numbers, it took humanity quite a while to grasp this. So it's not, they're probably developmentally like around the age where they can start dealing with the concept of negative numbers at that level when it comes to multiplying them and dividing them, and what the rules are for those. So it focuses for quite a while on just getting the rules correct on, okay, if you multiply a negative times a negative, you get a, and if you divide a negative by a positive, and what happens if you're doing 3 or 4, times, divided by, times, all that stuff. So then I'm scrolling through on the other screen. Like, what else do they cover? Just making sure I don't miss anything. So then in chapter 3, you work on expressions and equations. So in this chapter, the primary goal is to help students become fluent in simplifying expressions and solving equations. So we're starting to get into more of the algebra side, right? You're introducing several new ways to write multiplication to avoid using the X symbol, because it's going to be problematic when you get into solve for X. Well, why are there X's all over the place? No, there are dots, and we're using parentheses and different ways to express multiplication. You're working with some new vocabulary, terms and coefficients and things like that. You're simplifying expressions and combining like terms. So if you have a kid who's already started working with a lot of algebraic expressions, we started algebra on a really basic level super early with her, because I think everything is easier to express as an algebraic equation. It just is. It makes everything make more sense. So we've been breaking things down as like, here's this giant word problem. How do you write that as an algebraic expression? What are you solving for? That sort of thing, from the beginning. So I highly advise that, because it makes everything easier to explain if you're not just introducing variables, once they've already figured out a whole bunch of other stuff, and then they're like, oh, what is this? What do you mean I'm solving for B? What is a B? Like, okay, sweetie, it's this. Which actually, when we were using the Good and the Beautiful math, I found that they started that really early. But they did it with like weird little things, like even in, I think we were doing like math 2 and 3 in the Good and the Beautiful, and they were doing like solve for the flower. I was like, oh, okay, we can do this. It was cute. So simplifying expressions, solving the equations, and they get pretty advanced. Like, what's an example on here? 5 times parentheses 2f minus 7 over 5 equals 9 times 5. Solve for f. So, it's pretty good stuff. Chapter 4 goes into statistics, which is really funny, because I was just over at my my grandmother's house, my daughter's great-grandmother's house. I love that she lives across the street. It's so nice. But we were just going over, like, what are you going to do when you get into high school math? And she has to learn stat and stuff. I remember how hard statistics was in high school. It's like, okay, well, statistics was like the easiest class I had in high school. Like, I basically slept through it, but okay. Like, we will be fine. It's always funny to hear the, like, afraid of teaching high school stuff. It's just like, high school is just the same as everything else. I'm sure it'll get harder. I'm speaking from no experience whatsoever. That's the fun stuff, right? High school's great. We'll do high school for years. Okay, so statistics, it gets into median and averages, and balancing around the average and averaging averages, range, mode, data displays. And then chapter 5 goes into factors and multiples. It explains what those are. It introduces the greatest common factor and the least common factor. And let's see, using prime factorization again. And Beast Academy 4 did prime factorization. So we are spiraling on a lot of these concepts, but over the years. So Beast Academy does do very much a mastery approach. So within 1 year, you master a concept, and then the next year you come back and you do it at the same time. And I really do like that you do it at the same time in the same season. It feels like they always start with geometry, and they they always do. I think it's almost always like geometry, integers, expressions. Like, they go through the little steps. They just get farther and farther into them as they go. Okay, so using prime factorization, Venn diagrams. Chapter 6 is fractions. So you're like, fractions, that sounds easy. I know. Adding and subtracting unlike denominators, multiplying fractions, simplifying fractions, division with fractions. So this is like A divided by B times B divided by A equals AB divided by BA equals 1. Or multiply 2/3 by 6/7, 4/7, and how you get there. Chapter 7 is sequences, arithmetic sequences. It teaches a lot of strategies on how you should be doing this. And that's one of the things that the comic books really get into. Look at the cool images from the comic books up above my head here. The nth turn. So they're doing a lot of my brain is blanking on things. Okay. Arithmetic series. And then they go into ratios and rates. And then chapter 9 is decimals. I'm speeding up because I'm realizing this is actually going to go pretty far through the thing. Chapter 10 is percents, and they learn about conversions and the percent of a number, equations regarding percents, percent changing, like 75% more than 36. How do we find that? 75% more than 36 is 100% of 36 plus 75% of 36. So 75% more than 36 is 175% of 36. That sort of thing. Square roots of whole numbers, square roots of decimals, square roots of how to compare square roots, tricky square roots and factoring, the Pythagorean theorem, exponents, zero and negative exponents, rising a power to a power. So 5 to the 4th power to the 3rd power is 3 copies of 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So 5 to the 4th power to the 3rd power would be 5 to the 12th power. That sort of thing. All right. Well, I hope that gives you a good overview of Math 5A. I highly encourage you to go to Beast Academy's website and look at the Beast Academy 5 overview, which is what I've kind of been scrolling through while I've been talking. And that should give you a really good sense of what's going to be in it and if it's appropriate for your child. I know I was kind of nervous using this program when we first started, but we first started with the online program for a very specific reason. We didn't know what level she was going to be in. So she had been doing 2 levels of math every year, and I was trying to actually slow her down so that I could catch up and figure out where we needed to be. And it was great, but we started her with the online program so that we could skip around. So on the online program, she did Beast Academy 2 and Beast Academy 3 while doing other programs. I think she was also doing The Good and the Beautiful Math 4 and Life of Fred, Apples Through Fractions at the same time. So we were doing, that was like our jambalaya year. We were doing everything at once. To try to figure out where we were going to be, because we were like, the math programs we were using didn't have math much farther on. At the time, I think The Good and the Beautiful had only put out math up to level 4. So it was like, this is our last chance. Now they have up to like level 6, I think. So I don't know. We might, now that it's free, we might print out some of that and like give it to her as a review. I'll talk about review on the next slide. Okay, so if you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I like to do multiple levels of math with my child every year. And that's either to her benefit or her detriment. We won't know for a while. I think it's to her benefit. She's doing quite well. But we were using Singapore math as our review math. And she got to the point where she was like, I don't like it. She was moving through it very, 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 very quickly. So she was doing like 2 or 3 years of Singapore math as a review math, just like extra worksheets. We actually did, I think, about a quarter's worth of Singapore math in one day, because it was review math, right? And she was just like hanging out, and I was scribing for her, and I would just like call out the questions and she'd answer them. And it was fine. It was great. It was good, like mental review. But I'm a nerd, so I'm always looking for like that next best thing. And I think a lot of homeschool moms are always looking for that next best thing when it comes to, stuff they can use to help their kids. Um, I, I want her to start writing more. She hates writing. She hates physically holding a pencil and writing anything out. She'll draw for hours, but when it comes to writing things out, so that's one of our goals for this year, is having her write things out more, me scribe less. And it's hard because it makes a page of math work go from this could take her a minute to this will take her 10 minutes. Like it takes 10 times longer if she has to write it out. I mean, and I think I might be oversimplifying it. Like I think it might take 30 minutes. Like it takes so much longer when she has to write it out. But anyways, I'm totally digressing. So instead of buying and buying and buying and buying more math stuff, I decided to start making math worksheets because I know what she is needing to review on. I know that a lot of the stuff that works best for her mental agility, her speed, when it comes to math is not working on the, big idea stuff, but working on the really like basic stuff, working on the addition, subtraction, fractions, telling time, the things that you forget while you're doing a mastery program, that aren't as conceptual, that aren't as, here's this crazy logic problem. Here's this really cool puzzle. The things that are just the nitty gritty bolts, mechanical stuff, the plus ones, right? So I started making, I've made addition, subtraction, prime factorization, and I'm working on like a bunch of other ones, but I've started making these math workbooks that are just drill sheets, right? But they're a little bit harder. They'll be subtraction facts up to 10,000. There'll be prime factorizations, but instead of being like a factorization tree where you're like doing 24 or something like really easy, they'll be like really long problems like do a prime factorization of, and I just throw in some random number and I don't know the answer until we finish it, right? But it'll be like 1,228. Let's do it. Let's go, kid. And she'll have to draw out the prime factorization tree and like think through it. And they're good little independent work things for her, where I can, and we're trying to work on independence this year too, where I can just sit her down and give her a little clipboard with like 5 worksheets and just say, okay, get these done in, the next 30 minutes while I'm, feeding the baby or whatever it is. So I've made several of them. Oh, and I also made these, I called it like Math Minds worksheets or workbook or something like that, where it's just a scratch pad, but it's a scratch pad with like hints on like different concepts. It's like, here's a scratch pad for when you're working out your area and volume equations that has all the area and volume equations on it, so that you're not like, you get halfway through a problem, you realize you're using the wrong equation or, whatever it is. But I was kind of thinking like, we were doing a lot of like working problems out in a notebook, which is fine. It was just like some random notebook we had lying around the house. But I was like, you know what? I really would like this to be on graph paper, and I really would like it to have a number line at the top, and I really would like it to have like a little reminder of some different little like math fact on it or something. I would like it to be specific to math. The way you want to work out a math problem is not the same paper as the way you want to work out your keyword outline for the story you're writing. It's not. I want to do it on graph paper because I want to line things up, and I don't want it to be, college ruled, and I just wanted different stuff. So I made a little Math Minds notebook. And then after I had made a whole bunch of these things, I realized I should put them somewhere. Other people should be able to have them. So this isn't a sales plug, but like be aware that you can have them, and I'll put a link if you want them. I don't know why I like them, so maybe you'd like them. Anyways, I'm going to go to the next slide. So I really do hate the idea of being salesy, but you can find them on my TPT shop. I started a TPT shop because I'm ridiculous and didn't have enough to do as a full-time working parent who also homeschools and has 3 kids. I definitely needed another thing. So find the link in the description below, and that's enough about that. So on the other things that we're doing, we are starting a more, not formalized because he's 3, but we're starting to actually pay attention to doing a little bit of school every day with my son. So my son just turned 3 in February. Very proud of him for being such a good little boy. And he really likes this show called Numberblocks. And if your toddler doesn't watch it, they should watch it because it's phenomenal. His numbers, I seriously wish they had it around when my daughter was young, because I think she would have. I mean, she likes watching it with her brother now, honestly. But I think she would have maybe even been more advanced in math if she had had this as a foundation as a little kid. So they have stuff. And I've started making these. So, you know, the Latchmate boxes? Maybe I'll throw a picture up here of a Latchmate box. So I love the Latchmate boxes, and we used them a ton when my daughter was younger. And we were like, here's all the stuff you need for geography in one box. And, you know, we'd just take the box to the park or something, and we'd do geography at the park, or, you know, whatever it was. And like little kids have so many manipulatives in math and stuff. So anyways, they have math manipulatives that are Numberblocks themed. So we got them, and we got them for him for Hanukkah. And then we didn't let him play with them because it was like, you are not quite ready for this. We need you to be able to sit at a table. And when you can prove that you can sit at a table and do a thing, then you can have these. But he was very excited about them. So I put them all together, and, you know, they have little like cards that are, some of them are like the size of an invitation, and then some of them are like half the size of a piece of paper. And I put them into page protectors in a little folder. And we pull one out, and then we do the activity on the little card. And his favorite activity, because he's 3, and this is math for a 3-year-old, is just lining all the number blocks up in the right order and counting and going 1, 2, 3, which is so cute. I love 3-year-olds. Like I love this age, and I love their tiny squeaky little voices. Anyways, so he lines them all up. But this is where Numberblocks is awesome. The other day, I took him to the office, and he was doing his Numberblocks like kind of independently. I put out like a couple different little mats, and he was just doing his own stuff. I let him play. And he is like tugging on me, and I go over and look at him. I was like, what? And he's like, Luke. He's like, oh, you have a little mat that has like an 8 in the center of it, and you put the 8 on the 8. Good job, buddy. But around the edges, he put 4 different combinations of number blocks that add up to 8. Yes. So that was a huge homeschool win. I was very proud of him and very excited. I was like, you understand how to add things to 8 because you watch this show all the time. So, yeah, very happy with Numberblocks as a like manipulative and as a, you know, just fun, entertaining show for my 3-year-old to watch. Don't feel even remotely guilty when I'm just letting him sit in front of the TV watching this show at all, because it is very much learning, and absolutely love it. And it's not just like addition and subtraction. It goes into multiplication, and it goes into like which numbers go into squares perfectly, and which numbers are odd, and which numbers are even, and which numbers are like steps where you can go like, it's 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 + 5. 15. And like it has little songs for different things. It has times table songs, and I really like their times table songs because we do a lot of skip counting because we do classical conversations. But their times table songs are actually a little bit better because they say, like this times this is this, versus skip counting is just like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, that sort of thing. This is more like 2 times 2 is 4. It like goes all the way up. So love it. Highly recommend. That's all I have to say about that. Hey, so thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Watch some other videos on here, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.